there were movies that shown at the Memorial Auditorium every week, and the flicks at Memod, and those were very popularly attended by the students. They always had serious, good local movies of the time, and accompanied by cartoons for a little bit. But most of them were just the popular films of the era. It was like going downtown to the movies, but it was close and cheap and on campus.
There'd be like a flyer for the quarter, and those were the shows that were going to come on. They'd be kind of relatively new releases or old, like classic releases. And you'd buy a pass for like whatever number of dollars, and it would be like this old-fashioned punch hole kind of card, kind of like your buy 10, get one coffee free cards.
I worked at the Flicks on Sunday. It was wonderful because the people who worked there were kind of like the gatekeepers. We collected the tickets. And so you knew everybody in the line, and they kept yelling for you to open up and all that kind of stuff. So it was actually just a crack up. I loved it. And of course, back then, you have to remember in '84, we didn't have, iPhones. Nobody watched tech independently. And so the Flicks was really a way for people to kind of get together and socialize and watch old movies. And it was just wonderful. It was a lot of fun.
Pretty casual behavior, pretty nice behavior by and large, unless it was a film that had some episode that might be very hilarious, and then there would be a lot of catcalls or yellings or so forth. But mostly the students watched the films pretty seriously, if they were serious films.
We had the student flicks on Sunday night, and that was always a big occasion. But I think they got more rancorous later, or more lively later. But that was a big activity.
This was another bastion of maleness. The balcony was men only. Now, this wasn't the administration's idea. This was tradition. Men only in the balcony. Downstairs, co-eds were allowed.
I was there sitting when women tried to infiltrate and sit in the upper balcony. And there were, to my total shock and surprise, really vociferous groups of men who would get up and just shout, out, 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 and try to throw women out of the balcony of a theater, because it was like an exclusive male domain to shout insults and comments at the movie from. That year, 1968 into 69, was when women finally got a chance to sit in the balcony. Not that it's the greatest thing in the world, but that shows how there was a separation of men and women.
They had two showings, one at 7 and one at 10. I always went to the late show, and before the movie started, there'd be a 10 to 15 minute long paper fight, where basically the whole auditorium would be throwing paper balls at crumpled up paper at each other. It was awesome. It was so much fun. There was a senior in my dorm, who was in charge of flicks. And I remember the last flick of the year, he got on the mic in the theater and said, "Hey, everyone throw your paper at that tall guy down below with the black hat." And I remember standing down there and just seeing this tsunami of paper coming off the top deck, and all this stuff, and all this paper was heading my direction, and not a single piece hit me. And I stood up on the chair and was yelling at people, "Bring it on!" I was then I just went. It was amazing. It was so much fun.
And then there was this tradition of, when the credits were rolling, there was just sort of arbitrary alternating cheering for the first name that would come up in the credits, and then booing for the second name that would come up in the credits, and back and forth, like clockwork, yay for whoever happened to be first, and boo for whoever happened to be second, back and forth. So sort of silly, meaningless traditions, but when it becomes a pattern, when it's routine, it's a tradition, then you sort of look forward to it just for the ridiculousness of it.